Revealed. How I transformed from dead weight into a successful entrepreneur, 3,000 miles away. Sam Carter stood in the dim light of his living room, eyes fixed on the dust motes swirling lazily through the stale air. Just last year he was proud, a factory worker contributing to the heartbeat of his struggling town in Ohio. Now, after losing his job at the auto plant, he felt like a hollow shell of the man he used to be. Dead weight, his peers called him. Those unsparing words echoed in his mind, making the walls of his modest home feel like they were closing in on him. How had he fallen so far? Each time he looked into the faces of his family, he felt the weight of their struggles pressing against his chest. Every missed bill, every anxious glance shared at dinner chipped away at his already fragile pride. Clutching his grandfather's letter tightly, Sam wrestled with the rush of conflicting emotions. Here was a legacy clutched in his palm, a man whose dreams had never seen the light of day. His grandfather had envisioned a vibrant family-run business that could have turned their lives around. Instead, he could see nothing but failure reflected in the dull glare of the old box surrounding him. Courage and ambition now felt like distant memories. Sam felt caught between his desire to honor that legacy and a gnawing sense of unworthiness. What if I fail? The thought clawed at him, spiraling into an abyss of self-doubt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he drifted through San Francisco's vibrant streets, the thrill of the city's energy contrasted sharply with the turmoil in his mind. Shop windows bursting with ideas, aspiring entrepreneurs hustling with bright eyes. It all seemed so impossibly hopeful. Yet every rejection felt like a spine-chilling reminder of his vulnerability. Each no pierced him deeper, the stinging words of loser reverberating back to him. What am I doing here? He wondered, feeling swallowed by the enormity of it all. Sam could practically taste the bitter fear of returning home empty-handed, unable to face the truth, that he had done it again. And then she appeared, Jenna, fierce and full of life, believing in his sustainable product idea when all he saw were shadows. With her guidance, he rebuilt his jumbled thoughts, but just as he began to feel a flutter of confidence, the shadows shifted. Reports of a powerful competitor, known for devouring dreams with ruthless disregard, crept into his consciousness. His heart raced at the thought of his idea being snatched away, leaving him once again with nothing but doubt and guilt. The stakes had never felt higher. Sam felt cornered in a city teeming with opportunity, yet shackled by his past. A choice lay before him like a lion waiting to pounce. As the reality of protecting his vision weighed heavily, each breath came harder than the last. With the confrontation looming, a visceral fear gnawed at him as he stood at the precipice of his journey. Would he be able to rise above the crippling self-doubt? Would he fight against the tide of corporate greed, or give in to the agonizing black hole of insecurity that threatened to swallow him whole? The critical moment was upon him, and with every fiber of his being, Sam felt the tremors of a life-altering decision surge within him, leaving him at a dizzying crossroads, a choice that could either redefine what success truly meant. The cold air pulled Sam from his spiraling thoughts, urging him to take a step forward, despite the uncertainty that now draped over him like a heavy shroud. It was time to face his fears head-on, to decide how far he was willing to go to protect his vision. As he walked the bustling streets, the murmurs of the city felt more alive than ever. Yet every laughter and conversation felt like an echo in a life that seemed to belong to someone else. Sam reached a small cafe, one whose walls were adorned with portraits of entrepreneurs who had triumphed over adversity. He sat down, observing people animatedly discussing their ideas as if they were the lifeblood of the world. He yearned to be part of that conversation but found himself drowning in a sea of self-doubt. Would he always be the one sitting on the sidelines, hesitant and broken? Jenna's words echoed in his mind. You have something unique to offer. Don't let the fear of competing take hold. He glanced around, looking for that fuel of inspiration she'd spoken of. An elusive spark. Then he remembered the letter still clutched in his hand. Blood surged in his veins as he opened it, skimming the words of grit and determination his grandfather had penned. It was a testament to perseverance. This was the fire he needed. Motivated by the memory of his grandfather's tenacity, Sam took out his notebook, the one Jenna had urged him to use for brainstorming. The apprehension that had been gripping him began to loosen its hold, allowing creativity to breach the surface. He practically filled pages with ideas, strategies to make his product different and compelling in a saturated market. It started to feel possible, real. The doubt felt lighter, replaced by a burgeoning sense of purpose. Yet, the uncertainty of that monstrous competitor cast a sprawling shadow. He knew that timelines were critical. The industry was unforgiving. He needed to act swiftly and decisively. The thought of coming up with a strategy to protect his idea sent a jolt of clarity through him. I won't let them take my dreams, he whispered to himself. But how? Just as he was grasping this newfound confidence, an intimidating figure entered the cafe. It was Marco, the CEO of the rival company. Sharp features framed by a well-tailored suit that oozed authority. Sam's heart sank, an icy grip tightening around him. The man surveyed the establishment, casting glances like a predator assessing its territory. Sam's stomach churned. This was not just a competitor. It was a giant in a ring already rigged against him. The thrill of adrenaline coursed through him, a desperate urge to confront this looming threat unfurling. He could overhear snippets of conversation about Marco's plans, his plans to dominate the market before anyone else could blink. This was not just a challenge. It felt deeply personal, a battle between tenacity and ruthless ambition. With determination slowly creeping back, Sam realized he could not let intimidation mute his voice anymore. He clenched the notebook tightly, reminding himself that his ideas weren't just wishful thinking. They were seeds that could grow into something substantial. As Marco prepared to leave, Sam stood, his hand trembling around the notebook. A decision was forming. The path ahead promised conflict, and he needed to choose between retreating or taking a stand. Between remaining invisible or becoming a contender who could alter the narrative. He inhaled deeply and squared his shoulders. This was no longer just a business endeavor. It had transformed into a personal crusade for dignity, a chance to reclaim what had been stolen from him. The moment had arrived. With one decisive step toward Marco, Sam was propelled into the arena of the unknown, where the stakes were high, and only one question remained. Was he ready to confront the man who could demolish his dreams? Sam's heart raced as he stepped into the unknown. Each footfall felt both exhilarating and terrifying, the din of the cafe fading into the background. He was acutely aware of the weight of the moment, a pivotal crossroads that could redefine his existence. Marco was just a few feet away, the very embodiment of the relentless force that had cramped his ambitions. Sam's resolve hardened. He would not be a bystander in his own life. "Excuse me, Mr. Marco," he called out, surprising himself with the steadiness of his voice. The words felt like a thunderclap, shattering the bubble of intimidation that had enveloped him moments earlier. Marco turned, his expression a mixture of curiosity and condescension. "Can I help you?" the CEO replied, drumming his fingers on the table as if assessing whether the interruption was worth his time. Public confrontation was never a skill Sam had perfected, but the burning determination molded his approach. "I'm Sam, and I'm launching a new product aimed at disrupting the market you're entrenched in," he blurted with a confidence he hadn't anticipated. The notion of standing toe-to-toe with a titan sent ice water through his veins, but it also ignited an inner blaze. For a brief moment, silence thickened the air between them. Marco's steely gaze pierced through him, weighing the merits of this unexpected claim. Sam could see the calculation behind his eyes, assessing whether to dismiss this intrusion or engage. "Is that so?" Marco leaned back, crossing his arms with an amused smirk. "You think you can make a dent in a space I've dominated? Tell me, what's your secret?" The query hung in the air, layered with both challenge and mockery. Sam swallowed hard, feeling the doubt creep back in. But he shook off the fear, recalling the urgency in Jenna's encouragement. He needed to pivot this moment into an opportunity. "I have a unique angle," he replied, addressing the smirk with calm persistence. "My approach focuses on sustainable practices that not only enhance user experience, but also respect our environment." Marco raised an eyebrow, interest piqued. "Sustainability is trendy. It isn't enough to fuel real change." "I know," Sam asserted, pushing through the creeping self-doubt. "That's why I'm not just relying on it. This concept is intimately tied to my personal story about resilience and overcoming challenges. Something I've lived through." Marco shifted in his seat, the candid vulnerability rattling the strategic mind of a businessman who rarely encountered such rawness from rivals. "Personal stories can be compelling," he conceded, though skepticism lingered in his voice. Sam pressed forward, drawing from deeper conviction. "People are tired of the same corporate machines treating them like numbers. They want authenticity. If I create something that resonates with them personally, they'll see the value beyond just a product." The intensity of the exchange crackled in the air. Sam couldn't predict Marco's next move, but he felt a breaking point approaching. "So you're banking on a story?" "Bold move," Marco said, tilting his head. "But are you ready for the competition? It's ruthless." Was he ready? It was a question that had echoed through his mind in quieter moments. Yet standing there, fueled by purpose, he realized he could not afford to back down. "I'm ready to challenge the status quo," he declared, feeling the tremor in his voice settle into something unwavering. "I'm not just here to compete. I'm here to change the game." Marco regarded him, a flicker of something unnameable crossing his face. Resentment? Respect? Sam couldn't tell, but he was no longer invisible. With a nod, Marco stood. "All right, Sam. Consider this a warning. My world is not a kind one. If you think you can make waves, be prepared for the storm." As Marco strode out of the cafe, Sam felt a strange mixture of dread and exhilaration. He understood now that this was only the beginning. Every word exchanged had stoked a fire within him, igniting a desire to not merely survive, but to thrive amidst the chaos of competition. Stepping back, Sam took a breath, staring at the now empty space where Marco had stood. There was a daunting road ahead, full of conflict, self-discovery, and forging connections. Yet it was also a path toward validation, a chance to prove his worth in a world more formidable than he had ever imagined. But as the chill of reality settled back around him, one question lingered. Would he summon the strength needed to bear the weight of this fight against Marco and his giant legacy? The answer would define who he was destined to become. Sam stood frozen, the echoes of his confrontation with Marco swirling in his mind. He had shifted from mere ambition to a stark, unflinching determination. The cafe around him was no longer just a bustling haven for caffeine seekers. It was a crucible for transformation. Each heartbeat reverberated with the intensity of the moment, compelling him to analyze what came next. He glanced around, observing the ripple of life continuing in the cafe. Friends laughing, solitary patrons engrossed in lively discussions, and baristas crafting espressos with meticulous care. He was among them, but felt a profound sense of separation. These people were rooted in their daily routines, while Sam stood on the precipice of something entirely new. The stark contrast between their little worlds and his freshly ignited resolve sharpened his focus. Determined to turn his audacious idea into reality, he needed more than just inspiration. He needed a plan. Sam drew a deep breath and pulled out his notebook, the pages littered with raw sketches of his business concept and ideas that had previously felt like fleeting dreams. He found his footing and began writing again, each word a step deeper into his vision. Sustainable practices became the core of his brand ethos, a bedrock of authenticity that he intended to weave throughout every aspect of the business. But this process required more than a mere concept. It demanded research, a robust strategy, and the strength to weather skepticism as intense as Marco's. As Sam wrote, the uncertainty nagged at him. The shadow of self-doubt loomed large. He had just challenged a titan, and now he found himself confronting the harshest critic of all, himself. What if Marco was right? What if his passion wasn't enough? It was a crushing thought that threatened to halt his momentum. But in that critical moment, Sam recognized the pivotal nature of pain in his journey. He recalled the struggles he had faced in his past, the moments of clear adversity that had tempered him like steel. Hadn't every lesson learned, every failure experienced led him here? To this crossroads? His memories transformed into a wellspring of motivation. This wave of reflection stoked the fire he had ignited with Marco. Resolved, he decided to find mentors who had navigated the entrepreneurial waters he was about to plunge into. Networking felt daunting, yet he understood its significance. A community of experienced minds could guide him, challenge him, and maybe even rally behind his vision. He mentally noted to reach out to local business groups and forums, attend workshops that focused on startups, and dive into the resources available in his city. Shifting gears, he flipped to a fresh page and began plotting a timeline for the launch of his product. Each week symbolized a milestone: market research, branding strategies, sourcing materials. Tasks that felt both monumental and manageable when dispersed over time. Sam's heart quickened with the rush of proactive engagement, each stroke of his pen solidifying his commitment. In the haze of optimism, he felt a sudden pang of fear, ignited by the thought of Marco retracing their steps. An inevitable confrontation on the horizon. Preparation would be crucial. Not just operational readiness, but the tacit knowledge that he would be at a continued disadvantage against his well-resourced rival. This was a battle not only for success, but to uphold the authenticity he championed. With a steely resolve, Sam reminded himself that doubt could serve as a bitter, yet compelling fuel. In challenging the giant, he wasn't merely seeking victory. He was affirming his identity. Veins etched with relentless determination, he felt he was transforming before his own eyes. Completing his rough outline, Sam closed his notebook, allowing a sense of quiet contentment to wash over him. He would rise to meet this chaos, head-on. But as he stepped outside the cafe, the intensity of his commitment surged back, accompanied by the haunting echo of Marco's warning. What storm was he truly stepping into? The uncertainties loomed large ahead, but he would face them armed with insights from his past and clarity of purpose. As night fell over the city, Sam looked up at the sprawling skyline, the lights flickering like stars in the darkness. In those moments, he couldn't shake the sense that the forthcoming challenges would redefine what he thought he knew about himself. He felt the magnetic pull of the journey awaiting him and wondered, who would he become by the end of it? With a spark of resolve, he knew he would expose himself to the truth. Trial by fire awaited. But one question loomed larger than all others. Would his story be one of victory, or one of searing defeat? The city lights blurred as Sam made his way home. thoughts racing through his mind like the taxis speeding by. Each step felt heavier under the weight of his ambition and the specter of Marco's dismissal. He could almost hear the echo of the older man's condescending laughter, a reminder of the steep mountain he was climbing. Self-doubt chased him like shadows, but with each passing block, he steeled his resolve. He was determined to reshape his narrative, a narrative filled with potential rather than defeat. As he entered his apartment, he flicked on the warm glow of a lamp, its gentle light contrasting sharply with the chaos in his head. In the stillness, a new urgency bubbled within him, compelling him to act. Sitting at his small kitchen table, Sam opened his notebook again, determined to redirect the nagging anxiety into something productive. He started by listing down the skills he believed he could hone: strategic planning, effective communication, and negotiation tactics. Each bullet point became a promise to himself, a foundation to build upon. The more he wrote, the clearer his path became. He envisioned himself not just as a dreamer, but as a doer, someone who could engage with the realities of the market, maneuver through the unpredictable twists. Realizing he needed to cultivate a versatile skill set, Sam dug deeper into local resources. He discovered online courses, workshops, and webinars targeting budding entrepreneurs. Some even offered mentorship programs that could match him with established professionals who could help mold his vision. Excitement coursed through him with the possibilities. Myriad opportunities stretched before him, and he began to map out a plan. With deadlines looming, he further established timelines for these educational endeavors. Each week would include specific goals: researching best practices, attending networking events, mastering social media marketing. The modern marketplace's lifeblood. The anxiety that previously swirled now transformed into a calculated strategy. Yet, as Sam began to gain momentum, the nagging idea of confronting Marco started to consume him. Would he ever have the chance to prove his worth? He envisioned their next encounter, where he would crystallize his newfound confidence and give as good as he got. What if he could deflect Marco's accusations, showcasing the research he'd pored over, highlighting his intended path to sustainability? The thought sent adrenaline pulsing through his veins. The encounter could be more than a simple business dispute, but he also questioned the emotional weight of such a confrontation. Was he prepared to face the giant not just professionally, but also psychologically? Would he stand tall or falter under the intensity of Marco's pressure? This uncertainty felt daunting, a specter that haunted every ambitious plan he'd laid. In the thick of it, Sam understood that this was not just a battle for truths, but a confrontation of beliefs. He needed to be crystal clear on why he was pursuing this path. Was it merely to prove Marco wrong? Or did his drive arise from a deeper place within him? The answer shaped itself in quiet moments of introspection. This endeavor was more than a career to him. It was a declaration of his identity. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, a sense of clarity enveloped him. He was not merely afraid of failure. He was terrified of mediocrity. The stakes felt high, yet their enormity edged him closer toward his authentic self. Encouraged by this newfound clarity, he realized the next step was not just about gathering skills, but also about fostering resilience. He needed to nurture an unwavering belief in his capacity to learn, adapt, and overcome. With time slipping through his fingers, he made a choice: to prepare for adversity by embracing the lessons success demanded. As he computed strategies, visualized his goals, and reviewed his plans, a single thought emerged with clarity. The time had come to transform his aspirations into actions. And with every action he'd take, he would inch closer to the moment of truth, when he would finally confront Marco. Would he rise to the challenge, or would he fold under the pressure of the expectations he had set for himself? The pivotal questions of his burgeoning journey awaited, and within that uncertainty lay the foundation for a new beginning. Having braced himself for what lay ahead, Sam felt invigorated by the potential of the experiences to come, poised at the precipice of change. But as he diligently prepared, one thought lingered in his mind. Was he truly ready to unveil the full weight of his vision? Or would he find the courage to push through the looming shadows of doubt and belief that suffocated ambition? The coffee brewed and filled the room with its rich scent, snapping Sam out of his thoughts. He took a deep breath, letting the aroma stir his determination. Today was different. It marked the beginning of his focused assault on the skills he had laid out, a calculated approach to reclaiming his narrative. He had a plan, and as simple as it might seem, the execution of that plan would dictate the shape of his future. He flipped through his notebook, reading the bulleted lists like mantras. Strategic planning, effective communication, negotiation tactics. Each skill felt like a lifeline, a stepping stone leading him toward the confrontation with Marco. Still, he knew that knowledge alone wouldn't suffice. He needed practical experience. With newfound resolve, he signed up for a local workshop on negotiation. It was scheduled for that afternoon, and attendance meant throwing himself into the deep end. The thought of facing others, discussing tactics, and role-playing scenarios excited him, but also ignited a spark of anxiety. What if he faltered? What if the lingering shadows of self-doubt crept back in, darkening his efforts? Those worries were unproductive. He reminded himself that growth often flourished outside the safety of comfort zones. As he donned a clean shirt, the crisp fabric felt symbolic. It signified a shift, a new version of Sam emerging from the cocoon of formerly self-imposed limitations. Arriving at the venue, he scanned the attendees. A mix of veterans and newcomers filled the room, all gathered to sharpen their skills. He took a seat at the back, hoping to blend in as he observed the dynamic. The instructor, a sharp-eyed woman with an engaging demeanor, began with a story illustrating the core of effective negotiation: understanding human psychology. Sam leaned in, savoring each word. It was more than rhetoric. It was his ticket to establishing authority. The first exercise paired him with a woman named Mia. They role-played negotiating a contract. Sam found himself hesitating, gripping the edge of the table as the scenario unfolded. What was wrong? He had read about these strategies, prepared for how to maneuver around aggressive tactics. Yet when faced with the opportunity, his confidence wavered. "Start with what you want, then listen," she suggested, noting his discomfort. He appreciated her straightforwardness. They swapped roles, and this time, he focused on anchoring his demands while actively listening. The more he engaged, the clearer his thoughts became. With each draft iteration, he began to discover something unexpected: an ability to empathize with the other party's perspective, a crucial element he had overlooked before. It wasn't merely about winning. It was about creating value for everyone involved. This revelation shifted something deep within him. The ability to deliver solutions rather than just defend his position was empowering. Maybe this wasn't just a negotiation skill. It was a crucial component of leadership. By the end of the session, he felt invigorated. The workshop accomplished more than teaching tactics. It had revealed depths within him that he hadn't yet tapped into. He left with a spark that went beyond simple ambition, igniting a belief in his capacity to succeed. As he walked home, the city lights felt less blurred, each twinkle echoing the opportunities ahead. The confrontation with Marco loomed, but Sam was armed, not just with knowledge, but with a clearer sense of identity. He no longer needed to prove himself to the likes of Marco. He would prove himself to Sam. Yet, deep down, a nagging thought persisted. Would development in these skills truly prepare him for the final clash with the man who had once deemed him dead weight? The weight of that looming question followed him through the darkening streets, making the night air feel thick with possibility. At that moment, he knew the next step would demand even greater courage. Would he have the fortitude to truly reveal his transformed self during their inevitable encounter? The stakes were higher than ever. The horizon of change inches away. With every beat of his heart, he grappled with the urgency to prepare. Not just for victory, but for a profound self-actualization. The time had come to face not just Marco, but the version of himself that had yet to emerge fully. What would that confrontation uncover? The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the walls of Sam's small apartment. He jolted awake, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. Today wasn't just another day. It was the launch pad for his next strategic move. The taste of victory was bittersweet, lying just beyond the grasp of his fingertips. In the mirror, he examined the reflection staring back. Fragments of confidence and lingering self-doubt coexisted in his eyes. He needed clarity. The workshop had unsettled him and ignited a fire he thought had long extinguished. Yet, the insecurities persisted, serpentine emotions that coiled around any burgeoning sense of success. Was it sufficient to change a few tactical pieces, or did he need a complete overhaul of how he valued himself? He had resolved to explore the latter. At the kitchen table he spread his notes, mindfully jotting down the lessons learned in the workshop. The concept of value creation echoed in his mind. Rather than just taking from a negotiation, what if he flipped the script and focused on mutual gain? This approach could guide not only his discussions with Marco, but also how he conducted business moving forward. As he scribbled, he stumbled upon another crucial idea: assertiveness without aggression. Balancing power dynamics was an art he felt clumsy wielding. His thoughts drifted back to his last conversation with Marco. Dominance always clouded their exchanges. Marco thrived on intimidation. Was he ready to stand up to that? Nothing about his past interactions gave him reassurance. Fueled by determination, Sam signed up for an assertiveness training seminar later that week. It felt risky, sending a message to his subconscious that he was indeed ready to confront his fears head-on. He envisioned the scenarios to come, practicing the language of assertiveness, building a parachute of emotional resilience that would allow him to plummet into uncertainty without losing himself. In the days leading to the seminar, he immersed himself in preparation. He watched videos on assertiveness, visualizing himself navigating difficult conversations. Each repetition unraveled threads of anxiety, revealing patterns in his reactions that needed recalibrating. He wrote down positive affirmations, a casting away of his old belief system that labeled him as deadweight. When the day finally arrived, the room buzzed with anticipation. Participants, all intent on mastering themselves, filled the seats. The instructor was an experienced coach, a woman who spoke with authority, commanding the room. Within minutes, Sam felt his pulse quicken as they paired off for role play. He found himself across from a tall man named Derek, confident and assertive. "Let's negotiate a deal," Derek announced, a spark in his eye. Sam's heart raced. What did he want? He had rehearsed many scenarios, but now, standing face to face, he realized that the most crucial element wasn't just the words, but the energy he projected. He needed to embody confidence, let it seep into his voice and posture. This was a test, a moment. "Let's start from where we both can find common interest," Sam ventured, his voice steadier than he expected. He sensed a shift in the dynamic. Derek leaned in, intrigued. Their exchange deepened, and with each statement, Sam felt more alive, more in control. They discussed terms, pushed back and forth, but this time he refused to shrink back. Toward the end of the session, exhilaration coursed through him. He recognized he wasn't just learning assertiveness, he was embodying it. It sparked a realization that went beyond just negotiating. It was about earning respect, for himself and from others. As they wrapped up, Sam left the seminar with a pulse of renewed courage. The confrontation with Marco was drawing near, a steep hill he was beginning to feel equipped to climb. Momentum had built with each skill he tackled, but there was still so much ahead. His steps quickened as he walked home, thoughts swirling. Could he truly confront Marco as his transformed self? Would the transformation withstand the pressure of their past? The stakes were rising, shadows of doubt threatening to overshadow his progress. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. He had to summon all he had learned to face not only Marco, but his own lingering insecurities. With every step, a question loomed. Was he ready to embrace every part of this journey? And could he finally demand the respect he had long deserved? The moment of truth approached, echoing against the walls of possibility. The dawn of a new day bathed the city in hues of orange and gold, showering Sam with a warmth that felt foreign, yet comforting. He stood by the window, the world buzzing below him, utterly oblivious to the internal battleground he had been navigating. Today was the day he would meet Marco again, and the implications of that meeting hung heavily in the air like storm clouds. A peculiar mixture of dread and determination brewed within him. He had dared to believe that the seminar had not only equipped him with skills for negotiation, but had initiated a deeper change. However, as he prepared for the confrontation, self-doubt clawed at his resolve. What if the transformation was merely a facade, easily shattered upon interaction with the very person who had long kept him choking under a shroud of intimidation? He dressed meticulously, acutely aware that his outward appearance could influence the dynamics of their meeting. A sharp navy blazer, crisp shirt, and new shoes. It wasn't just about projecting confidence outwardly, but also about solidifying his internal shift. Each item felt like armor. He needed all the protection he could muster. With each calculated stride to the office, a soundtrack of self-affirmations played in his mind. He envisioned himself responding assertively, setting clear boundaries. He mentally rehearsed scenarios where he pulled the conversation into collaborative territory, away from Marco's usual aggressiveness. He had to own his value, not just in their negotiations, but as an individual in the workplace. Upon arrival, he noticed a peculiar shift in Marco's demeanor. Marco's swagger seemed slightly diminished as he sat behind his desk, flipping through documents, partial disinterest brazenly etched across his face. Sam seized the moment to assert his presence. He approached with purpose, offering a handshake that felt solid and unyielding. "Marco, we need to talk about our next project," Sam began, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. The conversation unfolded slowly, weaving through familiar topics, but Sam maintained a newfound clarity. For every sidestep or presumptive comment Marco floated, Sam countered with the assertive request for collaboration. As the meeting progressed, Sam observed the subtle shifts. Marco's attempts at condescending remarks hit the air but dissipated without gaining traction, thwarted by Sam's confident posture and unwavering eye contact. Mirroring Marco's own techniques, Sam reframed each aggressive tone into an opportunity for mutual exploration. It was exhilarating. However, as their conversation built towards a pivotal moment, a familiar flicker of doubt ignited. Marco leaned back, a smirk forming at the corner of his mouth. "You think you can negotiate with me like this?" he challenged, eyes narrowing. A test. The tension simmered. Sam felt like the floor beneath him shifted. Had he miscalculated? Would the old Sam rise from the ashes of his insecurities? In an instant, all the training, all the affirmations seemed at risk of unraveling. But instead of retreating into his shell, a surge of power flowed through him. "I believe we can both win here, Marco. We have to pivot from past imbalances if we want this to work," he asserted, his voice steady, his heart pounding. This was the crux. Would Marco engage with respect or revert to manipulation? The atmosphere pressed about them, silence stretching as tension curled around the edges of Sam's resolve. In that heartbeat, he understood. No matter the outcome in the moment, the change he sought required persistence. He was no longer waiting for validation from an old adversary. He was demanding a seat at the table. As the silence deepened, the world outside blurred. The question surged within him. Had he truly transformed? Or was this just a momentary flash of courage against a familiar foe? Time seemed to halt, leaving lingering anticipation hanging in the air. With the stakes at their highest, Sam knew that the only path available now was forward into the unknown. Facing Marco down was only the beginning. But what awaited him on the other side of this confrontation could redefine him once and for all. The moment had come to confront not just Marco, but the shadow of fear looming over his transformation. Would he emerge victorious, or slip back into the shadows of doubt once again? The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken tension, as Marco's smirk hardened into a steely glare. The air crackled, and Sam's mind raced. This wasn't just a negotiation. It was a test of his newly forged identity. He had taken a step onto unsteady ground, and now the consequences hung lower than ever. Marco cocked his head, as if sizing Sam up for flaws, his attitude shifting back into something more familiar. Predatory. You really think throwing some nice words around will change things? He leaned forward, a tactic designed to intimidate. Sam noticed his hands gripping the edge of the desk, knuckles white with tension. In that moment, Sam's earlier confidence wavered. But he didn't allow it to break the surface. Instead, he felt the stirrings of resilience. It's not just words, Marco. It's a strategy. One that respects both our positions. He pressed, unwilling to let Marco's bravado derail his resolve. He recalled the exercises from the seminar. How to use body language. How to mirror responses in a way that communicated strength without hostility. Sam leaned in slightly, matching Marco's posture, albeit with a slight tilt that conveyed openness. If we're going to move forward, we need to align our goals. The corners of Marco's mouth twitched, either in amusement or disbelief. Align our goals? Since when did you become so diplomatic? The sarcasm laced his words, but Sam chose to see it as a sign he was being taken seriously. Marco was threatened. I've learned that collaboration yields better outcomes than at odds, Sam replied, tone level. I'm not the same person who used to cower from you. I have insights that could benefit the project. As he articulated his thoughts, he felt an unfamiliar sense of power coursing through him. It was as though his conviction allowed him to stand taller, not just physically, but within the very space they occupied. Marco recoiled slightly at Sam's assertion, and for a fleeting second, genuine surprise flickered in his eyes. This wasn't the easy Mark he had always perceived. Something had shifted. But beneath that surface, Sam felt the familiar stirrings of doubt rising again. Would Marco ultimately dismiss him, or adapt to this new reality? You really think you can convince me to change how I view you after all this time? Marco's voice dripped with incredulity, but beneath that, it was tinged with something else. Curiosity. That curiosity ignited a flame in Sam. Even if Marco doubted him, maybe there was a chance to plant a seed of change. It's not about convincing you, Sam responded, voice firm. It's about recognizing that we can achieve more together than apart. The echo of his own words solidified his stance. He was selling more than a proposal. He was packaging a message of empowerment cloaked in professionalism. The room fell silent again, the weight of their exchange pressing heavily. Sam could feel the tension threading itself into an intricate knot, an unresolved confrontation swirling with possibility. He had ventured into this meeting questioning everything he was, and here he stood, unwavering in clarity. The power dynamic had shifted, and whether Marco chose to respect it remained to be seen. But the reality was, no matter the outcome, Sam had begun to redefine his narrative. The challenge ahead felt oppressively layered as the gears clicked into place. If Marco resisted this change, would Sam retreat or push forward even harder? As this gnawed within him, the realization crystallized that he was grappling not just with Marco, but with his own recurring doubts. Then it came. It felt small but profound, the question piercing through the ambient noise of uncertainty. Sam asked, "What will it take for us to build a better working relationship?" Now both men needed to decide their next steps. Would Marco lean toward collaboration, or pull tighter the reins of his old tactics? Sam's heart pounded as the moment teetered on the precipice of possibility, revealing the integral truth. This was not just about work. This was the foundation of his evolution. And as the tension finally snapped into action, the question remained. Would he embrace this newfound assertiveness, or would he retreat into the shadows once more? The answer held the key to his next transformation. Sam inhaled deeply, briskly shaking off the lingering tendrils of self-doubt that had gripped him throughout the encounter. He had faced Marco head-on, countering the intimidation he once felt with tenacity forged in self-discovery. What started as a mere negotiation had evolved into a profound confrontation of identity, his engagement born from newfound conviction. Marco's smugness faded as Sam articulated his vision for collaboration. It was as if Sam had planted the seeds of his own resolve, daring the giant to reconsider his approach. If we're both committed to the project's success, let's explore the ways we can bring our strengths together. Sustainability, authenticity. These are not just trends, they're goals with merit. Sam asserted, voice steady and unwavering. With every passing second, he felt walls once built from insecurity begin to crumble. Marco began to lean back, recalibrating his assessment of Sam. This shift marked a critical moment, one in which Sam recognized he was no longer that dead weight from Ohio, but emerging as a competent contender in this entrepreneurial arena. As their dialogue continued, the atmosphere thick with anticipation shifted toward collaboration, an unexpected twist in the narrative. Sam found himself presenting ideas once drowned in self-doubt and fear of rejection. Let's create a pilot program that champions sustainability and targets demographics eager for change, he proposed, each word fortified by the knowledge that his perspective held value. For the first time, Marco considered the possibility that Sam's insights were not only credible, but advantageous, an acknowledgement of the potential buried beneath years of underestimation. The tension that had marked their previous interactions faded into something more productive. This realization was liberating for Sam, confirming he was not merely surviving, but thriving in the very space that once felt insurmountable. Barely contained excitement rushed through Sam as Marco nodded, his demeanor evolving from dismissive dominance to cautious engagement. "All right, let's outline the specifics," Marco replied, his voice less tainted with arrogance and more aligned with negotiation. As each idea flowed between them, Sam realized he had accomplished the impossible. He had carved out a collaborative opportunity from what once seemed like a predatory encounter. After a thorough exchange, Marco leaned back, a hint of admiration creeping into his demeanor. "You're not what I expected, Sam. If you can keep this level of drive into the implementation, we might just redefine our market." A wave of pride surged through Sam, who understood that this recognition didn't just reflect Marco's change of heart. It solidified his transformation. He had proven to himself that he could navigate complexity, unearthing his own worth through authentic dialogue. As they shook hands to seal their agreement, Sam felt a tactile wave of culmination wash over him. This was more than a successful negotiation. This was, most importantly, a triumph over an old tenacity that haunted him. Each calculated step forward from here on was a step on solid ground. Walking away from the meeting room, a quiet yet firm sense of accomplishment settled within Sam. He had not only proven his competence, but had reclaimed any narratives threatening to confine him. Emerging from the shadows of self-doubt, he had firmly transitioned into a space of recognition, embodying solidity and assuredness. Now more than ever, Sam understood the value of asserting his voice. He had transformed from an undervalued worker into a recognized entrepreneur, sustained by a foundation of growth that no longer echoed past insecurities. Standing tall among city skyscrapers, he felt the pulsing rhythm of opportunity course through him. With every step, he contemplated next milestones, expanding his network, further developing his product, or perhaps even mentoring others embarking on similar paths. A profound satisfaction enveloped him as he recognized his journey was only just beginning. The horizon brimmed with potential. Every challenge he had faced became not an obstacle, but a stepping stone, an opportunity to redefine who he was. The decisions he had made were not merely tactical, but pathways to enlightenment and authentic change. For Sam, the transformation was complete. He had conquered the shadows of his past, stepped into the light of opportunity, and emerged with clear aspirations. A testament to resilience and growth. Now, to continue this journey of inspiration and transformation, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait. Even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Let's keep this community thriving.